Welcome back, freshwater fishing novices. This is Freshwater Fishing Novice Friday. My name is Moles. This is the Freshwater Fishing Novice YouTube channel. Thanks for coming back. Today is kind of a continuation of last week's video, talking with Tom Sisson, and he threw a bunch of stuff at me. So today we're going to be talking about a general gear guide. If I was going to go out fishing with someone and they'd never fished before, what gear would I bring to help them catch fish? What would I set my mystery guest up with for gear to catch fish? So, general gear guide, it's going to be pretty basic: rod, reel, line, lures. That's not what Tom's asking about. He wants to know specifically what I would use. We're going to talk about panfish, trout, yellow perch, black crappie, and rock bass gear setup or gear guide if you're going to go out for those smaller fish. If you're going to go out for, trout can get huge. Here's proof. That's my buddy Carlton, and he pulled in a huge trout, and I'm sure he was not on the gear I'm going to talk about. But generally, where I am, the trout I catch are pretty small. Unless you're Carlton and you're catching monsters. This guy, huh? Carlton, come on, buddy. This is a general gear guide for catching panfish, black crappie, yellow perch, rock bass, and trout. So this is the gear I would bring if I was going to meet someone and go fishing and bring them all the gear they need. This is what I would use. So the very first piece of gear you're going to need to go fishing is going to be a fishing license. It's not the most exciting. It's a piece of paper, but it keeps you legal and out of trouble and paying fines. Don't forget your fishing license. It's the most important thing you're going to need to go fishing. That's going to be step one. It doesn't matter if it's a 1-day license, a 3-day license, a 5-day license, a lifetime license. You can get those. Go on your state Department of Natural Resources DNR site and type in fishing license, whatever. Find that license, purchase the license, and then we can move on to everything else. Let's get on to the fun gear. Now, obviously you're going to need a rod. What kind of rod would I use? Typically I would set someone up with an ultralight rod, say 6 feet to 7 feet. The ultralight rod for beginners when you're catching panfish, trout, yellow perch, rock bass, and black crappie, you're going to be able to feel that sensitivity. The rod's going to bend right over, so it's going to fight the fish for you. So you can see it almost bends all the way halfway down, that rod. 5 guides down, it's bending. So ultralight rod, so that's the rod you're going to want. Now what kind of reel are you going to pair with that rod? Probably a size 10, or you're only going to need a small reel for panfish, trout, yellow perch, black crappie, and rock bass. What line would I set up on this rod? So what I'm going to throw on this guy, one, because it's a lot less visible, is going to be fluorocarbon. What weight I'm going to use? 2 to 6. I'm going to lean on that 6 side, just so we're not snapping off. I try to go lighter, but it seems like I snap off a lot, so I use 6-pound line on this so I know I don't snap off. Now let's talk about lures. So for top water on an ultralight rod, going for smaller fish, what is my go-to? I go for what's called the little crick hopper. Now it looks like a grasshopper. They also make it in a different color. So if you want a different option, a little more subtle or a little brighter, this crick hopper is basically a very small wake bait. Now what's a wake bait? It stays on top of the water and it makes a wake. That's what a wake bait is. If you ever see, oh, wake bait, what's that? It's going to sit on top of the water column, because it's top water, and just make a wake, like a V wake, coming off of that back of that lure. It's going to draw the fish in. Now you can see on this crick hopper, it's got a little lip. So what it does is it buries its little face down, and it starts kicking back and forth like this. But on an ultralight rod, this crick hopper is kind of the jam. Now, what's another topwater ultralight lure you can use? You can use the Whopper Plopper. This very small size, I believe this is a size 60. I'd bring this guy along too, just to have, just in case someone wanted to throw it on, or maybe I wanted to introduce them to a Whopper Plopper. That small Whopper Plopper is what I would bring along as well for topwater. Now the last topwater lure I'm going to talk about for panfish is going to be this. Am I going to give the company away? This is called the Puppy, the Zara Puppy, by Hedden or Hedden, whatever. If you want to use a spook on ultralight gear, which, you know, I've been pushing the spook since I figured it out. This spook on ultralight gear for topwater works pretty good, and you can walk the dog with it. So you got your wake bait, the crick hopper. We got I guess it's called a plug or a walk the dog bait, the Zara Puppy. And last but not least, if you want to use a Whopper Plopper for topwater on ultralight gear, you can get a size 60 Whopper Plopper. They have different colors. So that's topwater for ultralight. So we covered the topwater. What about the middle of the water column? Now, one of my all-time favorite lures is going to be that soft plastic curly tail grub. Now, when this moves through the water, this curly tail on the back moves and it looks like a fin. What I'm going to pair that with is going to be a very small ball head jig. And I'm going to try to match the color of this head with the color of the body. So if someone told me you got to go catch panfish or smaller fish, trout, whatever, rock bass, yellow perch, and you had to throw something, what would it be? It would be that ball head jig on a very small curly tail grub. Now these sizes, you can change the sizes and go bigger. They have huge ball head jigs, they have big curly tail grubs, but with an ultralight rod for panfish, trout, yellow perch, black crappie, and rock bass, I'm going to use that small ball head jig. Now if you don't want to use the curly tail grub, what else could you use to fish through the middle of the water column? Well, they make these little curly tail, which is basically, let's see if I can hold this correctly. It's like a swim bait. Looks like a little fish. You're going to rig it. How am I going to rig it? Through the head. And now what I do is I mark where it's going to end up with my finger. And I know it's, well, now I'm going to have to maneuver it here. But I know it's right there. So now that is basically a swim bait. But curly tail grub does the same thing. So you could either use like a fish body, or you could use that curly tail grub for the middle of the water column. When you're fishing the middle of the water column, if you're using that curly tail grub or something else, you know, that soft body curly tail fish imitation. What's another lure you can throw instead of that? This one has dominated my trout fishing right here. This is a rooster tail. That's the company, but it's an inline spinner. So it's got a weight right here. It's got feathers. It's got a treble hook, and it's got that blade right there in silver. Now, I've had the most amount of luck on a rooster tail on a 1/8 size in that white or pearl, I guess. But the inline spinner. So what you're going to do when you toss this guy out, same thing as a curly tail grub. You're going to toss it out. As soon as it hits the water, you're going to close your bail and start reeling. you want this blade right here to immediately start spinning. So you gotta kind of crank down and get it moving, and then you slow down. And what I've been told by trout fishermen who fly fish, they told me to throw this guy and you toss it out, get it moving, and then as slow as possible, just to keep that blade spinning. If I had to go catch trout and you told me I had one bait, it would be this inline spinner, 1/8 weight inline spinner, rooster tail in pearl with that silver, I guess that's a, not a Colorado blade, Colorado's round. Willow blade? I don't know. But if you're gonna go catch trout, don't forget to get a rooster tail. All right, so what lure am I gonna use for bottom fishing? Bottom of the water column, riverbed, lake bed, pond bed. Basically, you're fishing on the bottom of the water body you're fishing on. What the hell am I talking about? You can fish that curly tail swim bait or the curly tail grub on the bottom as well. You can use it like a jig. Because it is a ball head jig, you can just drag it across the bottom. So you can use those ball head jigs like that as well. And what I use is going to be a tube jig. Inside of that tube jig, let's take a look at what's inside of it. So we got the exterior, which you can clearly see, and you see the hook and my fingers on the eyelet right here. Now that is what it looks like without the skin on it. So it's got some weight right here. It's got the eyelet right here and the hook right there. After it's all rigged up, that's what it looks like. So tube jig, you're just gonna toss it out on slack line, let it hit. It's gonna spiral down, death spiral, and then it's gonna hit the bottom of the water column, and you just jig it back or drag it. You can swim it back if you wanted. Now, if you wanted to go more finesse, what are we gonna do with that? So finesse fishing. What am I gonna use for finesse fishing? For ultralight fish. For finesse fishing for panfish, what I'm going to use is that I'm going to use a trout worm. So that trout worm is maybe 2.5 inches long. It's white. What that's going to do is visually you'll be able to see it disappear in the water column. You're going to toss it out weightless on you're going to wacky rig it. So you hold your plastic like that. This waggly action, that's what you're looking for. What I'm using for a wacky rig on this little worm, it's going to be this is a size 10. Oh Jesus. A size 10 bait holder hook. What I'm going to do is grab that worm in the middle. You're going to go straight through the body. There we go. Equal parts dangling down. So when I toss this guy out, this is for finesse fishing, but it's going to do that waggly action. And you'll see it disappear, and that's what this is my go-to. Like if I have to set someone up to catch something, it's a wacky rig on a size 10 bait holder hook, and it's a 2.5 inch trout worm white. So you can see it even if you're not wearing polarized glasses when it disappears. Now if I was going out with someone for the first time and they wanted to catch black crappie, trout, yellow perch, panfish, rock bass, there's one tool I would bring. It's going to be forceps. So these are locking, they're medical. You can see they click in. And the other thing these guys have right here, scissors. So you can cut your line, you can get the hook out, you can lock it on and just lock it on a pocket, but it's always right there. Or, you know, because this jacket's kind of awesome, they just tuck right in there. Or you know, if I'm not wearing this, I clip it to my pants, my belt, doesn't matter. As long as these are in grabbing vicinity, when I go ultralight fishing, I always have these guys. So one reason is this little size 10 bait holder hook is a pain in the butt to get out with your fingers. So say this is inside the fish. How are you going to get it out? You're going to use forceps. So you're going to go down in its mouth, grab the hook. Hopefully you didn't gut hook the damn fish. and you can get it out. Now, if you don't want to bring forceps, which are like $2, dude, get them at Walmart. You can get them at a box store, usually in the fly fishing section. So fly fishermen use these, and if you're using smaller gear, I don't know why you wouldn't have these. Now, if you don't want to have these, you could have an Aberdeen hook. Here's the bait holder hook. Now, Aberdeen is going to be, it's not going to be huge, it's just going to be a longer shank. What that's going to allow you to do is you'll be able to grab the hook. With this guy, you're not going to be able to grab that hook. I mean, maybe if you hook them right, but with the Aberdeen hook, you're going to have a little bit more of a shank right here, and you might not need these forceps, but past experience, having forceps is better than having different hooks. If you don't want to get this, you can go for Aberdeen hooks. I don't opt in that direction. If I was going to bring someone out, I'd give them a bait holder hook and a set of forceps. So let's recap. What are we going to get for fishing for panfish, trout, yellow perch, black crappie, or rock bass? We're going to use an ultralight rod, 6 to 7 foot. The longer the rod, the further you're going to be able to cast, but it's kind of unwieldy, so I usually lean between 6 and 6.5. We're going to look for a size 10 to 1,000 size reel, 2 to 6 pound fluorocarbon line, leaning more towards that 6, a crick hopper, a tube jig, an inline spinner, curly tail grub, 2.5-inch trout worms, size 10 bait holder hooks, forceps, a Zara puppy, and a size 60 whopper plopper. All right, so Tom, I hope that helped you out on the gear I would use to catch trout, black crappie, rock bass, yellow perch, and panfish. Kind of how I break it down. If you told me we're going fishing for any one of those fish, that's the gear I would bring with me. It would probably fit in like a hip pack too. I mean, it's small gear, light rod, and minimal tools. And that's really all I use to go ultralight fish for those types of fish. All right, freshwater fishing novices. Hopefully that helped you guys out. Maybe give you a little insight as to the gear you need and your rod, reel, all that stuff. If it helped out, you can hit that like button. If you guys have different questions about how to catch fish, different techniques and stuff like that, you can leave it in the comments below. I guarantee I'll respond. If you guys are just learning how to fish as an adult and you're not subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Click that bell notification, make it turn from red to gray. Ring that bell and you'll be notified of future fishing videos helping you become better anglers. Is that it? Like, comment, subscribe. We all did that. That's great. Don't be a D-bag. Thanks for watching the Freshwater Fishing Novice YouTube channel. My name is Moles. It's Freshwater Fishing Novice Friday, and I'm the Freshwater Fishing Novice. Thanks for watching this week. Hope you guys have a great weekend. I'll catch you next week.